That baby won't make it.
I was startled by the sudden words thrown at me. No good? What does she mean by that? It happened while I was on my way to a checkup, carrying my full-term belly. I was waiting for the light to turn green at the crosswalk when an old woman standing next to me said it. I had never met this woman before. I was already anxious about giving birth, and now this woman is saying something like that. How could she be so thoughtless? Before I could say anything, the old woman continued.
If things keep going this way, you'll be raising the child alone.
She said it quietly, almost like a prophecy. At that moment, the light turned green. As the sound of cars driving away filled the air, for some reason, my husband, Mike, came to mind. No way. My heart sank, and I couldn't stand still. I quickly dialed Mike's number, praying he would answer. Please pick up. I waited anxiously, almost like I was praying, and then the ringing stopped.
Hey, what's up?
For a brief moment, I was relieved by his usual tone, but I quickly said, Sorry, but can you check around our house for me? Mike sounded puzzled, but when I urged him, he sensed something was wrong. I listened as he called out to his dad and headed outside while keeping the call connected. I held my breath, focusing on every sound coming from the other end of the line. After a while, I heard both of them let out a short "oh," and I strained my ears to listen closely.
Who is there?
Then, the sound of running footsteps and Mike yelling, "Stop," echoed through the phone. It sounded like he was running after someone, and all I could hear through the phone was the wind rushing past. My name is Sarah Oakley. I'm in my 30s, currently married and living with my husband, Mike.
Sarah, I bought some cake. Let's eat it together.
Once a month, Mike stops by the bakery near the station and brings home cake. Wow, blueberry cake? It's so cute.
It's a new flavor. I thought you'd like it.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you as always.
We both exchanged shy smiles as we dug into the blueberry cake and cheesecake. We're not particularly wealthy, but these little rewards make us incredibly happy. Our story goes back to our high school days. At the time, I had lost both of my parents in an accident and couldn't even attend school. I spent my days crying. During those difficult times, it was Mike who would bring school handouts to me. Apparently, it was because we lived nearby. There was always a little note written on the corner of the handouts he brought. Things like, "Let's play soccer," or "We're doing a food stall at the school festival." Those small messages became something I looked forward to. Even now, when I bring it up, Mike still gets a little embarrassed. Thanks to his support, I was able to graduate from high school. After that, we started dating, went to college, got jobs, and eventually got married. Mike's parents knew all about my family situation, so they treated me like their own daughter.
Sarah, if you ever need anything, just let me know, okay?
Even when I was a student and after we got married, his mom, Amy, always said the same thing. His dad, Greg, was just as caring. I've always felt incredibly grateful to them and still do. It was in the summer, about 2 years after we got married. I hadn't been feeling well for a while, and I was even getting dizzy. Is it heat stroke? It had been an intense heat wave, and there were warnings about heat stroke every day. But something didn't feel right, so I went to the hospital, and that's when I found out I was pregnant. A new life, a new family was growing inside me. The more I thought about it, the happier I became, and I felt like skipping with my joy. I held the maternity class brochure in my hand and was full of joy. I floated home on cloud nine, started making dinner, and waited for Mike to return.
I'm home. Hey, what's up? Any good news?
When Mike saw me sitting at the table in the living room, he seemed to notice something. It was probably because I couldn't wipe the grin off my face. In a hushed voice, I told him the news. Guess what? I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby.
What?
He looked at my face and then my belly, and his eyes filled with tears.
We're going to have a new family. Can anything be better than this?
He said, his voice trembling, and I nodded along, tears welling up in my eyes too. We immediately shared the news with his parents. And though it was over the phone, we all cherished the happy moment together. From the next day on, despite his busy work schedule, Mike made even more of an effort to take care of me, making sure I didn't overdo it. As my morning sickness worsened, I found myself spending most of the day in bed, which made Mike pretty worried.
You don't look well. Why don't we move in with my parents for a while? They can help us.
I wanted to say I was fine, but the truth was I wasn't fine at all. I was feeling anemic and unwell, and I was afraid I might never meet our baby. When we told Amy and Greg about my situation, they quickly agreed.
Of course, we'll help. Right, honey?
Yeah, we're family after all.
Feeling a little bad about imposing on them, I moved in with Mike to his parents' house. About a month after we started living there, something strange happened. One day when I came home from a checkup, I noticed graffiti on the house wall. At first, it was written in chalk, and I figured some neighborhood kids were just messing around. But as the weeks went on, it got worse, and eventually the graffiti was sprayed on with paint. Was this some kind of harassment? When I told Amy, Greg, and Mike about it, they all tilted their heads in confusion.
That's too high up for a kid's prank.
He's over 5'7", and the graffiti was at his eye level.
But there's no one in the neighborhood who would do something like this.
We kept an eye out, but the graffiti kept appearing at random times, and nobody in the neighborhood had seen anything. It was a quiet, peaceful area, so who could be doing this when no one was watching? As time went on, the graffiti escalated. Then, one day, my name and Mike's were written on the wall. How do they know about us? I shuddered in fear. The thought of someone watching us without us knowing was horrifying. Feeling unsafe, we talked it over with Amy, Greg, and Mike and decided to install security cameras. For a few days, nothing showed up and only the usual neighbors passed by. But on the 5th day, the camera finally caught something. Early one morning, I woke up from a restless sleep and wandered over to the window. That's when I saw something move quickly by the house. Startled, I checked the security footage, and sure enough, there was a man, about 5'7" tall, dressed entirely in black. He had a hat pulled low over his face and wore a mask that covered half of it. I couldn't see his face, and I didn't recognize him. He quickly sprayed the graffiti and hurried off. Who is that? Just then, Mike walked over to me.
It's hot. I couldn't sleep.
He had woken up from the heat as well, but that wasn't the issue right now. Look at this. I caught someone with a spray can on the security camera just now. Suddenly wide awake, Mike stared intently at the footage. After watching the man leave, Mike murmured, "I think I might know who that is." He pointed out the guy's baggy t-shirt and the way he fiddled with the hem of his shirt as he walked away.
Could this guy be Scott? You know Scott Carter, remember?
Scott Carter. As I repeated the name, I tried desperately to recall.
He lived next door in our old apartment, remember? The guy who dressed like a musician.
Oh, that guy. The word musician triggered my memory. Not long after Mike and I started living together, we rented a cheap apartment. Our neighbor back then was Scott Carter, and I remembered him as a pretty regular student when we first met to introduce ourselves after moving in. He wore baggy sweatpants and kept fiddling with the hem of his clothes. We had one argument with him, and it was about a noise issue. He used to play loud music early in the morning before the sun was even up. It wasn't every day, but often enough that Mike and I couldn't sleep properly. There were more and more mornings when we went to work sleep deprived. The frustration just kept building up. One day, Mike finally had enough and went to talk to him. That's when Scott lost his temper.
I want to listen to Summertime Blues. What's so wrong with that?
I'm just asking you to turn it down a little.
That won't be rock and roll anymore.
And why does it have to be early in the morning? This is disturbing our sleep.
Rock is meant for the early morning.
I couldn't understand his logic. He was yelling like a child, getting more and more heated. It got to the point where other tenants came out to see what was going on. Even though we spoke directly to him, he wouldn't listen. I knew this was going to keep happening. It made me dread what was coming next. We ended up calling the management company to step in, and the next day, an older manager showed up. The manager gave Scott a stern warning. He was told that the early morning noise was against the building rules, and if he couldn't follow them, he would have to move out. After that, the early morning noise stopped completely. In fact, we didn't hear a sound from him at all. Now, I remember that whole situation clearly. But that was years ago. We had moved out of that apartment about 4 years ago, and I remember Scott was still living next door when we left. The old place wasn't far from Mike's parents' house, so it's possible Scott was still living there. Is he obsessed with us? If so, will the spray paint be the end of it? What if he harms not just me but our unborn baby? I didn't want to live with that fear hanging over me. When I told Mike, he nodded firmly.
Let's take this footage to the police. We can't wait until something happens to Dad and Mom.
That same day, we went to the police, explained the situation, and asked them to speak to Scott. The officer who helped us seemed tired and said, "Him again, huh?" I didn't ask what had happened before, but I could imagine. After that, the graffiti stopped, and we didn't see Scott on the security cameras anymore. The police told us they had given him a stern warning, telling him to stop harassing us and defacing the house. Hearing this, Mike's mom, Amy, was relieved.
Well, at least Scott won't be coming around to graffiti the house anymore. That's a relief.
Yes, I responded, but deep down, I wasn't completely at ease. Is this really over? Will he come back in a few days? I had those worries, but Scott never appeared on the cameras again. Maybe I'm overthinking it. The graffiti stopped, and peace returned to our lives, giving me a sense of relief. Months passed after the graffiti incident, and I was now full term in my pregnancy. The baby was growing healthily, and the thought of meeting our new family member made me so happy. Mike, along with his parents, couldn't wait either.
Maybe tomorrow's the day.
Mike joked with a big smile, making me laugh. But truthfully, I was feeling a little anxious. Could I handle the pain of labor? Would I be able to give birth properly? What if the baby didn't cry when born? Can I really raise a human being? The more I thought about it, the more the anxiety grew, and sometimes I'd find myself secretly crying. One day, as I was walking slowly, weighed down by these thoughts on the way to a checkup, I spotted an elderly woman stumbling across the crosswalk. I didn't know her, of course. She was tapping the ground with her cane as she walked, seemingly unable to see well. Would she be startled if I suddenly called out to her? I hesitated for a moment, but when I saw her trying to cross the street while the light was still red, I decided to speak up. "Excuse me, the light is still red." To my surprise, the woman wasn't startled at all and calmly stopped, saying, "Oh, is it?"
Thank you, dear.
As we stood there together for a while, the woman suddenly turned toward me. She looked at my belly for about 10 seconds, then said,
That baby won't make it.
"What?" Her words, spoken so suddenly, shocked me. What does she mean by "won't make it"? Before I could say anything, the old woman continued.
If things keep going this way, you'll end up raising the child alone.
Just then, the light turned green. As the sound of cars moving by filled the air, for some reason, Mike popped into my mind. His playful smile flashed across my thoughts, and a warning light went off in my head. I suddenly felt uneasy and couldn't sit still, so I called Mike. It was his work from home day, so he should have been at the house. The phone rang. Please pick up." I waited, almost like I was praying, and finally the ringing stopped.
Hello. What's up?
I felt relieved by his usual tone, but only for a moment before I spoke. "Hey, sorry, but can you check around our house for me?
Why, all of a sudden?
Just do it quickly." Mike sounded puzzled, but sensing the urgency in my voice, he realized something was off. I heard him call out to his dad and head outside, keeping the call connected. I held my breath and focused on every sound coming through the phone. For a while, I could hear Mike and Greg talking, but then I caught a short "oh" and strained to listen closely.
Who's there?
Then came the sound of running footsteps, followed by Mike yelling, "Stop!" It seemed someone had been lurking around the house, and now Mike and Greg were chasing after them. Mike must have been running frantically because all I could hear from the phone was the sound of wind rushing past. The sound of static, like a sandstorm, clothes rustling, and the pounding of running footsteps. And finally, it seemed they had caught up with the person, as I heard the sound of someone shouting. It was a voice I recognized, harsh and yelling.
Because of you, I lost my jobs. I'll never forgive you. You think you can just live happily ever after.
Then came a roar as if filled with rage. For a few moments, I heard the clanging of metal and shouts like, "Stop, that's dangerous." All I could do was sit there, sweating, unable to stop my hands from trembling with nerves. The sounds of a struggle filled the air, and I had no idea what was happening. The unknown shouting continued. Amidst the chaos, a powerful shout of "Ha!" rang out. It was less than a few seconds. I heard the clatter of metal hitting the ground, and almost at the same time, the heavy thud of something collapsing. After that final impact, the other end of the phone went completely silent. What on earth is happening? No one said a word. I didn't know anything. Fear gripped me, and I screamed, "Mike, Mike, answer me." Mike brought the phone closer to his face, out of breath, and called, "Sarah?"
Scott. Scott had a knife.
"What?"
A knife. Scott had a knife, and he.
Catching his breath, Mike relayed the details to me in broken sentences. "Scott had a knife? Are you okay? You're not hurt, right? He didn't stab you, did he?"
I'm fine. Dad took the knife from him and caught him. There's no need to worry.
Greg, Mike's dad, is usually calm, but he's known in the neighborhood as a strict karate master. It was something only Greg could have handled. Mike said he would contact the police and hung up. Feeling relieved, I glanced around and realized the elderly woman who had been nearby was gone. The traffic light had turned red again. It all felt like a strange daydream. Maybe Scott had been waiting for the right moment to break into our home and harm Mike. The thought sent chills down my spine. If it wasn't for that woman's warning, the worst could have happened. I whispered a quiet thank you in my heart. Later that day, after my checkup, Mike greeted me a few meters away from the house. As soon as he saw me, relief washed over his face, and he rushed over.
I'm so glad you're okay. Thanks for calling earlier.
With a smile, Mike tried to reassure me, acting as if nothing had happened.
But how did you know?
Well, there was this old lady. I told him about the encounter, and we both exchanged puzzled looks. Neither of us had any blind relatives, and Mike didn't know her either.
Anyway, both Dad and I are okay, and Scott's been arrested, so we can relax now.
But he knows where we live, and with the graffiti incident too. I'm worried something like this could happen again. I confessed my concerns about staying in the house. To be honest, I want to move far away. I wanted to give birth safely and raise our child in a peaceful environment. I just wanted a life where no one could threaten our safety. Tears welled up in my eyes as I spoke, and Mike nodded. "I understand."
Let's talk to my parents when we get home and start planning the move.
We explained everything to his parents, and they agreed. Our whole family decided to move far away together.
To be honest, we were a little scared too.
It takes courage to move to a new place, but we didn't have much of a choice. Mike's parents put their house on the market, and we began searching for a new home and preparing for the move. I rolled up my sleeves, ready to dive in, but Amy quickly stopped me.
Sarah, I think you know better than that.
Amy repeatedly warned me not to lift or carry anything heavy.
Leave that kind of thing to us. You need to take care of yourself.
Grateful for her concern, I began sorting through my belongings. Among the items, I spotted an old photo album of my late parents. It was covered in dust and had faded over time. As I flipped through the pages, the soft, blurred images taken on a film camera exuded a nostalgic, vintage feel. Then, out of nowhere, a photo slipped out from one of the pages. The adhesive must have come loose. Slowly bending down to pick it up, I was shocked by what I saw. Wait, is that? In the photo, my parents were holding newborn me, and standing beside them, smiling, was the blind elderly woman from the other day. I flipped the photo over and saw my dad's handwriting. Sarah's first meeting with her great-great-grandmother, Anna. So that elderly woman was my great-great-grandmother from all those years ago. But she's still alive? That can't be. I grabbed my phone and immediately called my uncle, Jeff. After a few rings, he picked up, his voice as easygoing as ever.
"Oh, Sarah, it's been a while.
I have something to ask you. Where is great-great-grandma Anna now?
Anna? Oh, she passed away quite some time ago.
That single sentence hit me like a wave of shock, disappointment, and regret all at once. Had I really met the ghost of my great-great-grandmother at the crosswalk? Why didn't she say anything? She could have told me she was Anna, my great-great-grandmother. Oblivious to my turmoil, Uncle Jeff began reminiscing fondly.
It was a hot summer day, and even in her final moments, your great-great-grandmother was worried about you.
She was?
Yeah, especially after your parents passed away in that accident. She kept asking, "Is Sarah lonely?" She worried about you a lot.
Warm emotions swelled in my chest as I fought back tears.
But now look at you. You've grown up just fine. Anna's probably watching over you from the other side.
Nodding repeatedly as I gazed at the photo in my hands. I suddenly felt a gentle kick from the baby inside me. Yes, I'm about to become a mother. You're right. Then I asked where my great-great-grandmother's grave was and said, I'll visit once things settle down.
That would be good. I'm sure Anna would be happy to see you.
After hanging up, tears started falling freely. My great-great-grandmother had been watching over me all along. Not just me, but also my baby and Mike. Realizing the depth of her love, I cried tears of gratitude. Thank you, great-grandma. I'll do my best to have a healthy baby. So please watch over me. I spoke to my great-great-grandmother in the photo. After that, we found a new home and moved quickly. It was a well-known area for being supportive of raising children, and we soon settled into our new life. Before I knew it, several months had passed since we moved. I gave birth to a healthy baby boy, and when I finally met him, it was such an emotional moment.
Thank you, Sarah. Welcome, little baby boy.
Watching Mike dance with joy made me feel both happy and a little embarrassed. After discussing names, we decided to name him Alex. Since leaving the hospital, our days have been a whirlwind. Everything was new, and I was figuring it all out as I went along. I just changed him, and now he needs another diaper? I thought, exhausted, as I reached out to my son, who was wailing loudly. I was so tired that I even started feeling guilty for not finding him as cute as I should have. Babies' jobs is to cry. But with such constant demands, I couldn't even find time for housework, let alone take care of myself. Slowly, I began to lose confidence. Maybe I'm not cut out for motherhood. Thinking like this made me feel like a failure as a mom. It was Amy, my mother-in-law, who noticed and offered me comfort.
Sarah, you look really tired. Why don't you rest for a bit? I'll take care of Alex.
She smiled warmly as she spoke. Alex was still crying, but as soon as Amy began to soothe him, he calmed down quickly. Decades of mothering experience truly showed. I took her advice and napped for a while. That evening, Amy and I sat together, sipping coffee in the living room. She admitted that she had been worried, watching me struggle as I cared for Alex.
You've been trying to handle everything on your own, Sarah.
I hadn't realized it until she said it. I didn't mean to, but she was right.
We're here too, so let's take it slow and do this together.
She said softly, wrapping her hand around mine in a gesture of gentle support. Her touch was warm and reassuring. Is this how comforting a mother can be? Thank you, Amy. After that, I began to rely on Amy more. Mike and Greg also pitched in, encouraged by her. Thanks to all of them, I started to feel a little more at ease with Alex.
Sarah, are we running low on diapers? Should I go pick some up?
Oh, yes, please, I answered. Mike gave me an okay sign with his thumb and forefinger before heading out. Seeing Alex sleeping peacefully in my arms, they quietly tiptoed away. I couldn't help but feel immense gratitude for the family that supported me through parenthood. Though there were still many challenges, I was facing each day with determination. As time passed and things began to settle down, Mike, Alex, and I visited a cemetery one day. Mike carried Alex, who seemed to be in an especially good mood. We had come to pay our respects at the grave of my great-great-grandmother, as my uncle had told us her grave was here. When we reached the gravestone, we offered our prayers, cleaned the grave, and placed flowers in front of it. The white lilies stood tall and graceful, and a gentle breeze swept through. Alex giggled with delight as the wind brushed past him. Great-grandma, it's been a while. Thank you so much for everything back then, I said quietly, hands clasped in prayer. You don't have to worry about me anymore. I'm not alone. There was no reply, of course. The gravestone stood silently, and only the stillness of time passed. Suddenly, Alex began to fuss.
What's wrong? Maybe he's hungry.
Mike said as he tried to calm him down. Just then, a gust of wind blew by, gently brushing Alex's cheek before disappearing. Alex stopped crying immediately, staring at the grave with a curious expression. I couldn't help but feel that my great-great-grandmother had answered. It was as if she was telling us, I'm always watching over you,